Booyakasha, and I'm back. Okay, so today I want to talk about the 6 principles that you can, but I would say must adopt and kind of live from in order to absolutely guarantee with a capital G your recovery. And that's a big word, Karen, guarantee. I don't say it lightly, but I know that these 6 principles that I call the 5 Ps and the big C are actually so so foundational, so fundamental that if you implement them, then the results are guaranteed. So hear me out, hear me out. Okay. Principle number one, it's kind of an obvious one, but you'd be amazed how many people don't do it. First P, prioritize. You got to prioritize what's important to you. If your recovery is the most important thing to you right now, make it your top priority. Which doesn't mean you have to give up everything you're doing and not have a job and not have a life and in order to recover. No, you don't need to leave and go on a 10-week retreat to do this. No, in fact, I highly recommend that you do this within the confines of your day-to-day life, because then when you're in the real world that you can handle the real world. But it must be your priority. So when you're practicing the skills of recovery, the new behaviors and the new mindsets, that's going to take time and effort and energy. There might be homework assignments, there might be calls with your coach. Prioritize them. Nothing comes first. Nothing, unless it's life threatening, should get in the way of you doing the work that is required to develop the skill and the skills needed for recovery and to create the freedom that your heart desires. And it, as I say, it seems really obvious, but we're busy women or we're busy men, and we have lives, and we've got kids, and we've got jobs and careers. And what I'm saying to you now is that prioritizing your recovery above all else is absolutely fundamental. Absolutely fundamental. If, for example, I was to give you a homework assignment to set alarms 5 times a day to check in with your tummy or to do some kind of skills practice, then that would need to come above and beyond everything else, and nothing can interrupt it, literally, unless it's life threatening. That is the requirement for recovery. The requirement for long term success is saying, nothing is more important to me right now than working on this area of my life. So it's a big one to ask, but often you only need 3 to 4 hours a week of effort, and yet it is required. It will require that you need a lot of consciousness, though. Even if it doesn't require actual time, it will require that you put more energy and thought into your day, especially initially when you're trying to rewire all these things. You've got to bring them back into the conscious again and then try new things, and then eventually they become subconscious. So it will definitely require your attention, and sometimes it's going to require your time. So prioritize it. Rule number one, prioritize. Principle number one, prioritize. Principle number two, pleasure. This is a great one. This is that reward system. This is what the brain thrives on. Dopamine, 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 dopamine. And if you can't use food anymore, then you're going to start getting creative about how to ensure that your entire recovery process is just bathed in pleasure, whatever lights you up. Music, podcasts, friends, love, attention, saving money, just like we chatted about in the binge busting video. Whatever it takes, for me, competition, drive, pride, whatever it takes to get you revved up and pumped up and excited about what you're doing, that's what I want you to absolutely layer into every piece of your recovery. Because whatever we do in a high state of emotional enjoyment and pleasure, excitement, joy, and love, our brain loves that and it wants more of it. We are pleasure seeking missiles. We will move in the direction of pleasure and avoid pain at every cost. That very principle is what got us in trouble in the first place. And you can use that to your advantage to get you out of trouble too. Now, initially, there's going to be some competing pleasure signals. Food gives you pleasure, maybe even purging gives you pleasure. But ultimately, your job is to keep stacking the pleasure on the side of your recovery so that recovery becomes something that you can easily choose because it's enjoyable. We don't want recovery to be hard, slog, difficult, punishment based. It needs to be filled with energy, enthusiasm, love, passion, all of that good stuff, as cheesy as it sounds. And it may feel a little far-fetched, particularly if you've been struggling in the disorder, in the bulimia, with depression and suicidal thoughts. So if you are there, I want you to know there is a way out of all of it. You're just going to need to go a bit slower. But whatever you do your best each day to get up and find ways to make the difficult times more pleasurable. You know, we can make washing the dishes more pleasurable by putting on some great tunes or having a great conversation or listening to an awesome podcast while we're doing mundane, boring tasks. That's true of everything. And the more pleasurable you make it, the more likely you'll want to do it. So layer in stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of pleasure. It's really, really cool. Okay, that's principle number 2. Principle number 3, practice, 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 practice. You'll hear me saying this again and again and again. Repetition is the mother of skill, and practice makes permanent. I had a great teacher who always used to say, practice until you can't get it wrong, which was really his way of saying, practice until it's so hardwired into the brain that you don't have to think about it anymore. You simply can't make the mistake because it's so automatic. So practice until you can't get it wrong. Practice, 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 practice. Principle number 4, patience. Yeah, my clients will hear me say again and again and again, go slow to go, what's it? Go slow to go fast. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I didn't come up with that myself. I think it was the Navy SEALs who used that as a principle, but it just makes sense. And recovery, it's more important than ever because you've done something a certain way multiple times. It's hardwired. You have to bring it all back into conscious awareness, and then you've got to practice doing it a completely different way. And there's no way you get all of it right overnight. So your ability to say, this is going to take time. Let's be spacious with our recovery. Let's give it more space than we think it needs. Let's be patient. I may not get the results I'd like tomorrow, but I'm going to get them. So let's just be patient with the expectations we have around how fast we're going to see our recovery coming. I want you to get excited about it, and I want you to want it in 3 months or 6 months or a year or whatever number you've got in your mind, but I need you to be patient along the way. Patience can really trip us up. And particularly if you're used to being somebody who gets results fast, who's very driven, very determined, a real to-do list kind of person. And hey, I'm literally that person I've just described. To slow down and have patience is super important. There's another great kind of concept that's going around in the world of self-development. It's something along the lines of, or let's put it this way, adapted to recovery. It works like this. We overestimate what we can do in a month, but we underestimate what we can achieve in a year. And we certainly underestimate what we can achieve in 10 years. So use that as your guiding principle. You're probably expecting too much of yourself in the first week, month of recovery. But after a year, I'm telling you, you are going to be blown away. If you don't stop the practice, practice, practice piece, and you're willing to be patient, the results you'll see will be exponential. They will build on themselves. This is the patience principle is the equivalent of the compound effect. Small, unsexy, unexciting changes building over time end up in this compound exponential curve. If anybody understands investing and the power of compound interest, the same thing occurs here. Every little win that you clock up, every time you make just an increment of progress, as long as you don't give up and you keep making progress, those results compound, and then suddenly you get massive shifts and massive changes as all of the pieces that you've been learning and improving upon start to really take hold, and then the whole thing starts to change. And for me in recovery, that's very much the time that the things you've been learning begin to settle into the subconscious brain and they become easy. But it's going to take a lot of practice and a lot of patience to get there. It's also going to take patience because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do things you know to be a bad idea. You know, it's just human nature. Be patient with yourself. We often test ourselves a few times before we realize, yep, I really shouldn't do that. Okay, so patience, patience, patience. Principle number 5, perseverance. We've spoken about this before when I talk about the skill of resilience, the principle of perseverance. Going for it, no matter what, deciding you're going to make a way or find a way, but you're going at it. The end. Get up, dust yourself off, and keep moving. It's the persistence of, I'm going to keep knocking on that door until somebody opens it. Yeah. So perseverance is an absolute essential. And if any of you are businesswomen or entrepreneurs or businessmen or entrepreneurs, then you'll know the power of persistence and perseverance. Provided you're heading in the right direction and you're willing to make little adjustments, but you're moving in the right direction, you'll get there in the end. It's provided you're not flying east looking for a sunset. If you have the right strategy, then you just keep going at it and you learn what you need to learn and you get up and you move on and off you go. And that's a lot harder to do when it's your own life, your own behaviors, your own mindset that seems to be getting in the way of your success. It's easy to be separated from results when it's a business. It's a lot less easy when it's something you're doing. But nonetheless, you're absolutely required to operate from a place of perseverance, to adopt the principle of perseverance against all odds. That's kind of a biggie, but it leads beautifully into the 6th principle that guarantees recovery. It's what I call the big C, certainty. The big C, baby, certainty all the way. 100%, this is going to work for me. I'm not giving up until it's done. If I can't find a way, I will make a way. I am 100% certain, 100%, not even a wiggle room of 0.0001% am I thinking for a second that I'm not going to make this. And if that sounds overwhelming, that's okay. That you can build and develop and grow certainty, but try and operate from a place of certainty. If I guaranteed you that if you did the work, if you came to work every day and worked really hard, you'd be guaranteed a $1 million bonus at the end of the year. All you had to do was work really hard and get your tasks done, and you would absolutely be guaranteed a $1 million bonus. How hard would you work? If you knew it was guaranteed, you'd work your ass off, right? But ass. So this is the same. I know that you are capable of full recovery. I know it. I'm not guessing at it. It's just a physiological certainty. It's a physiological inevitability that if you keep repeating the right behaviors and the right mindset, it will create what you're looking for. Yeah. I know that with an absolute certainty. And even now, listening to me, you might be getting excited, but there's a part of your brain that's so scared of failure, that's had so much experience of failure, that it's going to be a little bit cautious of what I'm saying. Yeah, but, well, maybe Helen, for you, or maybe your clients, but you don't know what I've been through, And first of all, I probably do know. And secondly, your brain's decision that you are going to fail at this will be detrimental to long-term recovery. Because if you even let in 1% wiggle room of an example of why you can't succeed, maybe you try something, it doesn't work, and your brain goes, you see, I knew you weren't going to make it. This is like everything else you tried. It's never going to work. Certainty. You have to say, I'm expecting failure. I'm expecting mistakes. I expect for this to take a little while. I'm planning for things to go wrong. And I plan to get up every day and persevere with patience and to continue practicing and injecting pleasure and to making this my top priority, because I am certain that I'm going to recover. You can feel the energy of that and how different it is. And that energy and that certainty begins to build. And the more you make progress, the more wins that you clock up, the more that your brain begins to witness what's going on, and it'll begin to attach to all the things that are working to say, you see, it's guaranteed this is going to happen because this and this and this. And you see, I'm making progress. So operate from a place of certainty, not from a place of maybe or failure. You must operate from a place of certainty, because that's the thing, that is the game changer, the big C, certainty. This is going to work. I will make a way, I will find a way, or I will make the way for me. Bottom line, the end, guaranteed, it's going to happen. And I'm going to do everything that I have to make sure that it does. Come from that place, and your recovery is a certainty. It's guaranteed. It is inevitable. Boom.